Class, today we're going to be learning about respiration. So I know this is probably a word you haven't heard before, but I promise by the end of this video you will be able to tell your friends all about it. Alright, so let's go over the three big components of respiration. Let's start with the skeletal component. You see our little skeleton guy over here. The muscular component. And the mucosal component. But I want to start with first, what is respiration? So I want you all to sit comfortably and take a deep breath in. And now breathe out. Congratulations, you have now participated in respiration. So let's get our lungs up here. So our lungs are a key factor in respiration, but they aren't the only part. So as you've just seen, respiration is breathing. We do it every day. We breathe in oxygen and we breathe out carbon dioxide. So oxygen is the good stuff and carbon dioxide is the bad stuff. When we breathe in the oxygen, our body transports it through our blood throughout the rest of our body, and then when it's done, we have carbon dioxide, which we let out when we exhale. And like I said, many parts of our body work together to make sure we can breathe, including our skeletal system, our muscular system, and our mucosa. So let's learn about them. So let's start with the skeletal system. We'll start with the windpipe. So when you breathe in, the air goes into your mouth past your larynx, which is, when we learn about phonation, we'll talk about this, but your larynx is basically a house for your vocal cords. And when we talk, our vocal cords hit each other and vibrate, and that creates sound. And we create sound through the air with which we exhale and inhale. So basically, the air is going in our mouth, through our larynx, through the windpipe, and into our lungs. And the scientific name for the windpipe is actually trachea, but I know a lot of us call it the windpipe, so we're just going to stick with that for right now. It is made of strong bone to protect your breathing, so if you were to get hurt, it's made of that strong material so that you can keep breathing no matter what. Another big aspect in the skeletal system when it comes to breathing is your ribs. So when you breathe in, your ribs move out, making room for your lungs. So like we were talking about, when you breathe in, your lungs expand. And actually our lungs are a lot bigger than we think they are. They take up a lot of space, so our ribs have to move out of the way to make room for our lungs when we breathe in. And the muscles in our ribs, which we're going to talk about in a minute, push the ribs out and bring them back in. So moving on, a little dancing guy, moving on. Alright, let's move on to the muscular component. So let's just take a look at what kind of makes up the muscular component of breathing. So we have our lungs, the diaphragm, which we haven't talked about yet, and I'll get into that, and our intercostal muscles. And this is a really fancy word for the muscles that are in between our ribs and that help them to move in and out. See, without our intercostal muscles, or you could just say our rib muscles, we wouldn't be able to expand out and create room for our lungs. So the muscles bring our ribs out and push them back in. So, like I was saying, our lungs expand out, and it's almost like a balloon. It's like when you inflate a balloon. That's kind of what our lungs are inside of our chest. Then, well, how does this work? We have the diaphragm. So when you breathe in, the diaphragm creates a vacuum similar to, I know we've seen our parents vacuuming the house. It sucks up the air. Through the diaphragm, we create the same kind of scientific motion. And like I said, your intercostal muscles pull your ribs in and out. Let's talk about the mucosal component now. So we got these little guys here. We have mucosa lining our entire respiratory tract, which is crazy. We don't really think about that, but there is mucosa in our lungs and in our trachea, everywhere. It helps keep the air warm and moist as it reaches the lungs, which is really, really important. We want that air to not be cold when it reaches our lungs. It also helps to make sure you don't get sick, making your immune system strong. So that mucosa, it comes into contact with a lot of the bacteria we breathe in. So that's just another fun scientific fact about the mucosa. So how does this relate to music? Well, let's take a look at our friends over here. We've got a little girl singing, we've got some people playing instruments. Well, when we sing or play instruments, we have to use a lot of air, which means we have to learn how to breathe properly. So that means sitting with good posture so we can have the most room inside our lungs, so we can get the most air to sing with and create the best sound we can. Also, knowing how our bodies work and knowing how our bodies breathe makes it easier to breathe musically, which is just breathing to prepare ourselves to sing or play. Had a good time learning about respiration, and remember, it's something you do every day. And as musicians, we should always try to use the most supported air we can.